World War II wasn't just a clash of armies and nations. It was a war filled with unimaginable horror and human suffering. Behind the famous battles and dates we all know lie stories so brutal, so heartbreaking, that they're often left untold. In this video, we're uncovering two of the darkest and most haunting chapters of World War II. These aren't just history lessons. They're stories of survival, desperation, and the terrifying cost of war. Stay with me, because once you hear them, you'll never look at World War II the same way again. In the winter of 1942, the world was watching the Pacific. Imperial Japan, under the banner of the rising sun, had launched its campaign across Asia. The empire's expansion seemed unstoppable. Hong Kong had fallen, the Philippines were under siege, and now Japan's eyes turned toward the Gibraltar of the East, Singapore, Britain's pride in Southeast Asia. The British believed Singapore was impenetrable. It had massive coastal guns, thick defenses pointed toward the sea, and a reputation as an island fortress. But the Japanese, under General Tomoyuki Yamashita, saw arrogance and an opportunity. On February 8, 1942, Japanese forces advanced not from the sea, but from the north through Malaya. They moved with terrifying speed, using bicycles to cover ground. Jungle terrain that the British considered impassable became highways for Japanese infantry. Allied troops, a mix of British, Indian, Australian, and Malayan soldiers, were outmaneuvered again and again. By February 13th, Japanese troops reached the outskirts of Singapore. Artillery pounded the city. Fires burned, water supplies were failing, and food was scarce. Refugees crowded into shelters while Japanese aircraft strafed them from the skies. General Yamashita, with only about 36,000 troops, bluffed his strength. He demanded Britain's surrender, hinting at a massive Japanese force that didn't exist. On the other side, General Arthur Percival commanded 85,000 Allied troops, more than double Yamashita's numbers. But they were exhausted, demoralized, and out of supplies. On February 15, 1942, after a week of fighting, Percival made a fateful decision. He surrendered. In one stroke, the largest surrender in British military history took place. Over 80,000 Allied soldiers became prisoners of war. But the story didn't end there. For the prisoners and civilians, the nightmare was only beginning. The Japanese occupation of Singapore became infamous as the Suk Ching massacre. The Kempeitai, military police, rounded up tens of thousands of ethnic Chinese, accusing them of anti-Japanese resistance. Many were executed in secret, machine-gunned at beaches, bayoneted in fields, buried in mass graves. Prisoners of war were shipped to labor camps across Asia, some ending up on the brutal Burma Railway, the Death Railway, where thousands died from starvation, disease, and exhaustion. Yet, amidst the horror, stories of resilience emerged. Civilians risked their lives hiding fugitives. POWs crafted secret radios from scavenged parts, passing news of the wider war. The Japanese Empire, in all its ferocity, could crush bodies but not always spirits. The fall of Singapore was a turning point. It shattered the myth of European invincibility in Asia, emboldened independence movements across the colonies, and showed the world what Red Sun rampant truly meant. Not just military conquest, but also the brutal reality of occupation. By 1945, when Japan finally surrendered, Singapore lay scarred but unbroken. Survivors carried memories of those dark years for the rest of their lives, memories of hunger, fear, cruelty, and, in rare moments, courage and compassion that flickered like candles in the darkness. The Siege of Leningrad, 1941 to 1944, City of Hunger and Hope. In the summer of 1941, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. His armies swept eastward with astonishing speed. By September, German forces reached the gates of Leningrad, the proud city on the Neva River, home to 3 million people and a symbol of Russian culture and industry. Hitler had no intention of capturing Leningrad in the traditional sense. He wanted it erased. His orders were clear: surround the city, cut off supplies, and starve it into submission. On September 8, 1941, the Germans severed the last rail link to the city. Leningrad was trapped. Winter of starvation. The first winter was the worst. Food supplies dwindled rapidly. The daily bread ration dropped to 125 grams per person, barely more than a slice. And this bread was not even true bread. It was made with sawdust, ground-up cellulose, even wallpaper paste. People boiled leather belts and book bindings to survive. When even that wasn't enough, darker acts emerged. The NKVD, Soviet secret police, recorded hundreds of cases of cannibalism, neighbors disappearing, children stolen in the night. Families clung to each other, terrified of both the Germans outside and the hunger inside. The cold was merciless. That winter, temperatures plunged to minus 30 degrees Celsius or minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. Heating systems failed. People froze to death in their apartments, sometimes still sitting at tables, wrapped in coats. Bodies were left on staircases, on benches, on the snow-covered streets, frozen, unable to be buried. By the spring of 1942, nearly 1 million civilians had died. The road of life. Yet the city did not fall. Across frozen Lake Ladoga, the Soviets carved a lifeline. Trucks roared across the ice at night under bombardment, bringing flour, ammunition, and medicine into Leningrad. This became known as the Road of Life. In return, children and the sick were evacuated across the same dangerous route. Drivers called it a death mission. German aircraft and artillery targeted the convoys constantly. Trucks broke through the ice, sinking into the freezing depths. But without this lifeline, the city would have perished entirely. Spirit of resistance. Despite everything, Leningrad fought back, not just with weapons, but with spirit. Factories continued to produce tanks and ammunition, even as workers collapsed from hunger. Students gathered in cold classrooms, their breath visible in the air, determined to keep learning. And in August 1942, in the midst of the siege, the starving Leningrad Philharmonic Orchestra performed Shostakovich's Seventh Symphony. The musicians were so weak some fainted during rehearsals. But when the symphony was broadcast across the city, with the loudspeakers blaring it toward German lines, it became a declaration. We are still alive. We will not surrender. Breaking the siege. For over 872 days, Leningrad endured. The Red Army launched counterattacks, slowly pushing the Germans back. Finally, on January 27, 1944, the siege was fully lifted. Fireworks lit the sky over the city, but beneath the celebration was grief. Nearly 1.5 million civilians and soldiers had perished, most from hunger and cold. Legacy of Leningrad. The siege of Leningrad remains one of the longest and deadliest sieges in human history. Yet survivors remembered not only the suffering, but the unbreakable will of the city. In 1945, Leningrad was awarded the title Hero City of the Soviet Union. Even today, in St. Petersburg, Leningrad's modern name, there are memorials with an eternal flame. Each year, survivors gather, some still wearing medals, some holding faded photographs of loved ones lost to the hunger, to whisper a simple truth. They tried to starve us, but we lived.